I'll probably give it to like 6:35 for people to join, and then I'll jump into it. I just want to make sure that the link was working and I didn't do anything to mess it up. So we'll give people a little bit more time. A lot of people taking all 3 exams. Wow. Is this anyone's first time taking the NCIDQ exam? Never done this before? From Charleston. I am obsessed with Charleston. I have some family that lives down there, and I actually have been considering within the next couple of years moving to Charleston. So I'm very jealous. It's one of my favorite cities. Yes, and people first time NCIDQ test takers. Thank you so much for joining. I hope I give you guys some good information. I'm going to do a little Q&A at the end. I don't know if like for that, you guys type into the chat, or I have to create like start a Q&A. Oh no, that's if I want to do it live. We're learning this live. I found your channel last week, started listening while working and during the commute. Oh, thank you so much. I hope everything's been really helpful. I've been really, really bad about posting videos, guys. I'm really sorry. I've been working on all this stuff. Client work has been really, really busy, which is very fantastic. But because of that, I have been slacking on my YouTube content. So I really apologize. More free videos coming, more NCIDQ content coming. First time, but I'm not 100% sure if I want to take all 3 or just the first 2. I would say, could you write in the chat like where you are in your career? Are you like more junior level? Have you been in the profession for a while? Like, what is your general knowledge base so far? Because I would say if, you know what, it depends, because it almost sometimes can be an advantage when you're a younger designer taking the NCIDQ exam, because it is not based on your professional knowledge or like how you do things in your professional life, but more so about how the textbook wants you to answer the question, or specifically how CIDQ wants you to approach a question. So it could almost be an advantage if you're younger and you have less professional experience. You just kind of, answer things as to how you learned it in the book, versus if you're further along in your career, you could have a lot of that subconscious knowledge of how you're really supposed to do things in real life or on the job, which could be counterintuitive. So I would suggest, if you can start taking just the FX and the PX together, I think that is probably an ideal scenario. Again, this is totally my opinion. I did take all 3 at the same time, my first shot around, and I did fail the practicum. I think it's beneficial if you're studying really, really hard for several months to take all 3 of them. But the IDFX and PX are very similar formats. They're both the multiple choice. And so I think doing those first and then coming back and taking the practicum separately would probably be my recommendation if you've never taken any of them before. But again, just my opinion. Intermediate, I work in a small firm, so I touch everything starting commercial, but I'm in residential currently. That actually might be an advantage for you that you've worked in both commercial and residential, because the practicum covers both of those. Okay, so you know what? It's 6:34. I'm going to get started. I want to say thank you guys so much for coming. If you're just joining, this is my first ever YouTube live stream. I'm a little nervous. I've never been fully live before. So if I make mistakes, if I don't know how to present my screen, if I stumble and stutter, oh, I love the little hearts. This is really cute. Then just bear with me. So, but yeah, thank you guys so much for coming, for all your support. I just want to kind of take this time to talk about the NCIDQ exam more theoretically speaking. And so if you are thinking of taking the exam in October, I hope that some of what I'm about to present to you is helpful and insightful. And yeah, with that, let's get started. Let me share my screen. All right. Let me just situate myself real quick. Screen. All right. Can everyone see my screen okay? We are talking NCIDQ insights, how we're going to tackle the October 2025 exam. Watching from New Jersey. Hi, New Jersey. We are neighbors. And so a little quick table of contents, what we're going to talk about today in this presentation. First, I'm going to give you a little preface on who I am. If you don't know who I am, what gives me the right? Why am I even doing this? Why am I creating these NCIDQ videos? What's my motive? I'm going to talk about insights from April's exam. What I actually did over the last couple of months is conducted a survey from past test takers, people on my email list, people that purchase my last cheat sheets, people that watch my videos. I just tried to get as many survey results as possible from people who took April's exam, analyzed it, and kind of dissected it into this presentation so we can try to demystify this exam. The main purpose of me doing that is because I don't know if you guys know this, but CIDQ does not release any past tests anymore. They used to. It used to be a lot easier to pass because you would have a direct blueprint of the exam questions and what they asked in the past. They don't do that anymore. So it's getting more and more difficult to actually study for and pass the test. And so doing something like this, getting, these surveys out and people actually taking them, please, I beg of you, when I send a survey out after this next test cycle, please take it. We can demystify it together and we can kind of get some insight on what CIDQ has been up to. Then I'm going to talk about just my advice on passing October and like your initial like kickoff to like what are the things that you need. And then we'll end with a Q&A. If you want to start putting in Q&A questions while I'm talking throughout this presentation, feel free if something comes up for you. And then at the end, I'll kind of scroll back into the chat and I'll answer some questions. I am not going to answer questions about eligibility. I get that all the time. I am not CIDQ. I cannot confirm if you are eligible to take the exam. So if you have a specific question about, are you eligible? Do you have enough work experience? Do you have the right mentor signing off on your documents? Please ask them directly. I will not have the answer to that question, but I can answer questions about, my experience taking the exam, study resources, anything like that, specific about format. I have a little bit of insight. So just anything else specifically pertaining to studying for the exam and my experience taking the exam, happy to answer those questions. So if you don't know who I am, hi guys. My name is 𝐂𝐤𝐬𝐽. I am an NCIDQ certified interior designer. I specialize in commercial workplace and I do own my own business here in New York City. I'm coming to you live from my very tiny Soho apartment. I don't know if you can see, that's a brick wall right there. That's downtown living for you. So I used to work in corporate architecture and design, doing commercial interior design. And about 1.5 years ago, I left my corporate job and I've been working 100% for myself with my own clients. But before I was a business owner and doing all these cool things, I was a junior designer. This is junior designer Kelsey back in January of 2020. If you know the timestamp, at least here in New York, March was when COVID really started. So at this time in this picture, I was a junior designer working at one of the largest firms in New York City. And the pandemic hit, paychecks got cut, the city was dead, and I couldn't afford to live in the city in my apartment anymore. And also there was kind of no point. So I moved back home for a little under a year to Long Island with my family. And while I was home during COVID, as everybody else was, I started making YouTube videos about interior design in my life and things like that. YouTube and videos, they were always a passion of mine ever since I was young. And so creating videos about something I was professionally doing and passionate about as well I found to be really fun. In addition to that, I decided, hey, I don't have anywhere to go. I can't see any of my friends and I'm stuck in the house. So I might as well take this opportunity to study for the NCIDQ exam. So I started studying for the NCIDQ exam in January of 2021. I took it the April 2021 cycle. It's my dog. He would come and sit and look out the window and study with me. And when I was studying, I was kind of having issues with finding resources that really were right for me. I am a designer, as all of us are. I am a very visual learner. It is very difficult for me to sit down and read this 1,000-page textbook and actually comprehend it and actually absorb the information. So basically what I started doing is things like this on the left here. This is my timing plan. I would literally, like when I was taking the practicum, I would have to write everything out and visually see it to keep track of my timing for the practicum exam. I started creating little graphs for myself. I started, creating my own little tricks on how I could more effectively study for this exam. When I went to go seek out more resources, I discovered that they were incredibly expensive. I did do 1 month of Q practice and I did find it helpful. However, $160 for 1 month, I felt like, 1 month I needed a lot more time on it. 4 months I was a junior designer who was living back home to save money. $600 was just completely out of the question. I was very lucky to be a part of IIDA at the time. And so I had their free study group available, which was very helpful and kept me on track. And I had someone to ask questions to. But other than that, I was really bewildered with how expensive the study materials were, in addition to the textbook itself being, at least $150, $200. So I went out to the internet to try and find some free resources. And to my surprise, there was literally nothing out there. I remember watching a lot of Archie Corner videos. I'm sure you guys have probably seen Archie Corner on the internet. I really, really love his videos. He was a big help when I was taking it and an inspiration for my videos. But other than that, there was nothing specific to commercial interior design, and there was definitely nothing specific to the NCIDQ exam. So I started making my own. A lot of you guys are here because you found me through these videos, and I really hope that they've been helpful. And my goal is to keep building onto this free library so that you guys can have free, easy to watch content. So the reason I'm kind of here today is because there is nothing currently out there that was able to help me in the way that I learned. And so I want to create those resources for other people. I then launched these little $10 cheat sheets. I thought no one would have any interest in them. And I had such incredible feedback for this quick little product that I put together. And a lot of people told me that they were really, really helpful. So I decided to kind of take all of that and run and put out the survey that I mentioned before. Everybody that was on my email list or people on YouTube, anyone that I was in contact with, I asked them to fill out the survey. And so that is what we are going to talk about today. So all of this is insights from April exams based on survey results of past test takers. Before we get into it, a little disclaimer. I have no formal association with CIDQ or the NCIDQ exam. Following information is all based on my personal surveys, research, experience. And another thing to note is that when you take the NCIDQ exam, they do, on the computer or before you, maybe when you apply, I believe it is, they have you sign a non-disclosure agreement that prohibits you from sharing specific information. So you can't share specific questions, to your friends. If your friend is taking the exam right after you, can't say, oh, there's a question about ADA bathroom plans and here's the answer. That is not allowed. You sign a non-disclosure. However, you can discuss information about overarching topics that you that you saw on the test, about your experience, about studying, about actually taking the exam. What was your experience taking the exam? And so that is what I've surveyed people on. Don't want CIDQ to come for me that people are giving me all the answers, because I don't have the exact answers. Another thing to tell you, I don't have all the exact answers. And so with that said, I just, before we get into the insights, wanted to share April's pass rates as well. You can see that they're pretty low. IDFX, I actually was surprised. Consider IDFX is the fundamentals exam, and hypothetically speaking should be the easiest, that this was the lowest pass rate. So just to give everyone a grounding point, this is not going to be an easy endeavor. This is a difficult exam to take, mostly because there is no specific information about what will be on the exam. So just wanted to put that out there. With that said, our insight number one is that application is better than memorization. What does that mean? So the exam is not going to test you on a specific question like, what is the minimum countertop height or the maximum countertop height for ADA? They're going to ask you an application question like, here is a countertop. What would make this ADA accessible? Or here is a reflected ceiling plan based on the codes for sprinklers and HVAC. Identify the items that are drawn incorrectly. So they are going to be application based and not memorization based. So 50% of designers surveyed mentioned encountering tricky question wording. They struggled with how to apply the knowledge, or they noted that the exam was significantly harder and more nuanced than the practice tests. Again, most likely because the format of the questions are more application based, situational based than specifically like what is the code. So super, super important to keep in mind. I'm going to recite this multiple times in this presentation because this is like the most important thing for you to know. Insight number two, and these are general insights about the entire exam, is visualization with your study tools. 56% of survey designers stated that reading the ballast reference manual, which is this guy here, this is your number one study tool, the David Kent Ballast book. 56% of designers said that that book wasn't enough alone, and that they also relied on visuals and graphics to help them understand the content better. Again, just going back to the idea that we're visual designers. So if you're someone that can't sit through this 1,000-page book and read it cover to cover and absorb and learn the information and then go take a test, then you need to seek out visuals. Go watch my videos, go, create little things for yourself, create mnemonic devices, whatever you have to do. But a lot of designers said that using visualization and graphics really helps them learn the content better. Insight number three, kind of piggybacking off of what I just mentioned, is variety is necessity. This was a pretty significant piece of data that I got. 90% of designers use more than one study tool, and 82% of designers use 3 or more. So this kind of proves my point that this book here is not enough. You really do need a variety of study materials like visuals, like flashcards, all of these different things, not only for learning styles, but also because this book is not 100% comprehensive. It has the majority of the topics, but there was feedback that I received from designers stating that they encountered topics and questions that were not referenced at all in the David Ballast book. So having more study resources will just give you that broader range as well, and hopefully fill in any gaps that maybe the textbook is lacking. So I want to go into specific insights with each exam. So if you are taking the IDFX exam, the first insight is that foundational business and design basics were hot topics in April. Several designers mentioned that they scored low on these topics, meaning that these are areas needing more study attention. So flagging these topics, IDFX is all foundational, but the design basics and the foundational business portions were hot topics that a couple of people did mention. So something to take note of. Another thing that they said was that if you're taking the IDFX alone, that David Kent Ballast book was a little too dense. The IDFX isn't necessarily testing you on every single thing in that book because it is just foundational. And so it felt a little too comprehensive. It felt a little bit too broad that maybe just narrowing in and specifically focusing on the things outlined in the CIDQ blueprint that will be tested is more of an efficient study plan. And finally, for IDFX, the IDFX is the most academic exam. And so the format of the question themselves were very high level. So instead of, for the practicum exam, they'll get very specific about details and things and applying questions in a case study, versus the IDFX will ask you questions that are more broad. Trying to think of an example, like, for design principles, like which design principles would you use for a situation like this? So like more broad. I hope I'm explaining that correctly. So it is good to have that broad understanding of those specific topics, and making sure that you're really diving in deep in all of these topics. I hope I'm explaining this correct. I'm getting a little bit of word vomit. What is foundational business? So I can actually, after this presentation, after I finish this, go back and drop a link to the CIDQ blueprint if you guys don't have it already. But on the NCIDQ website, they have the specific topics for the IDFX, and they'll list exactly what those foundational business topics are. So it'll be very basic, like the process of a design project would be very foundational, or the process of creating a program for a client, stuff like that. So we are going to move on to IDPX. Our first insight is that codes are critical. This is the #1 hot topic for IDPX. So many designers mentioned it. 68% of designers actually mentioned that codes were the primary tested topic. ADA, fire code, and egress were 3 specific ones. So if you are studying for the IDPX, make sure that you really have a strong emphasis on studying the codes. Again, not just memorizing codes, but understanding when those codes are used. I'll give you an example. So NFPA 701, that's a fire code for drapery. They're not going to ask you what is NFPA 701. They're going to ask you, here's a situation where you have drapery in an office building. Which code is most important for you to be familiar with? The answer would, be NFPA 701. So knowing exactly what those codes do pertaining to the situation that they give you. Next is lighting and building systems. After codes were another very hot topic, and a lot of designers mentioned that they struggled with this, especially lighting. They're going to ask you a lot about integrated building systems, which basically means like HVAC, plumbing, and electrical. Those are the integrated building systems. So another hot topic to keep in mind that you really want to study for this exam. And then wording won out. This was the exam based on all 3 that the most designers mentioned that they were tricked, or they felt tricked by the wording of questions. Again, I can't emphasize enough that the exam wants you to apply the technical rules to complex scenarios in an application format. Again, it's not just what is the code, it's how do I apply this code to this specific situation. I'm going to sound like a broken record by the end of this, but I cannot emphasize that enough. And then for the practicum exam, number 1, if you are taking the practicum exam, time management is going to be your key. This was something that I also experienced. I did not officially run out of time, but I was down to the wire where I felt like I was racing against the clock. And I've heard this feedback from so many other designers. This exam is the most difficult, in my opinion, and from what I've heard from other designers, because you are racing against that clock. You are having to read the question, look at the case study, refer to the IBC code that they give you, and then cross-reference everything. It takes a lot of time to solve just one question. And so setting yourself up for time management for this exam is going to be your number one thing. I actually have a video on my channel that is like about my time management strategy. I forget what it's called, but it's in my NCIDQ playlist. I have something on there that will hopefully help you with your time management, but just create your own time management schedule if you want before you take the practicum, but you need to do it. It is so important. Our next one is ADA and code application were hot topics. Again, I can't emphasize this enough. NCIDQ loves ADA. Like, if you are going to be familiar with anything, any of the topics, I would say across any of the exams, all three of them, it's going to be ADA code. Many designers mentioned struggling with not only ADA and codes themselves, but how to actually apply them to the questions. Again, application, not memorization. And I did hear feedback that this was still a struggle for people that were taking this test the second time around. So just want to emphasize that. And the last for the practicum is that current tools were lacking. I had a lot of designer feedback that reading the textbook and taking the practice exams and using flashcards were just not enough. Because the practicum format is so specific, you really need to have study materials that are not just you're reading a textbook again or memorizing code. You really need resources that are visual, that almost like, you know, mimic the exam format. And again, it's hard to know because you won't be able to see the exam format until you get in there. And I will warn you, when, you know, I told you I failed the practicum exam the first time. The first time was so difficult because I was learning that format of having the case study and having the IBC and having the question. I'm pretty sure I do have a video on my channel as well where I have like a screenshot of what that looks like. But again, just something to keep in mind with the practicum exam is visuals will really help you. A lot of practice tests and just doing things that are not in a multiple choice format or not in a textbook format will be most beneficial. So taking all of this data and insight into account, how do you build a successful study plan? These are my opinions, my advice, my tips. And what I feel to be the successful blueprint is 4 things. First, you need a plan. Second, you need the right tools. And third, you need test taking strategies. And fourth, you need confidence. So for your plan, you need an organized study plan that outlines exactly what you need to read, study, and practice. You can find one online. I'm going to give you guys one, after this presentation, or you can create your own. But this will keep you on track and prevent procrastination. Again, if you think you're going to sit through and read this whole textbook on your own account and just breeze through it, you're probably lying to yourself unless you really love reading textbooks. I'm a big procrastinator. I found having a plan to be the one thing to keep me on track. Also, it will prevent overwhelm. There is a lot of information that you need to take in kind of a short amount of time. So having a plan will help you just look at it and say, okay, I need to read these 3, and that's all I have to worry about. I don't have to worry about the mountain of information and knowledge I need to learn. Second, going along with this, giving yourself enough time. This is not an exam where you can just cram and pass the exam unless you're really good at cramming. I guess that's technically possible. I feel like for the format of this exam, giving yourself at least 3 months, that's my kind of advice or preferred amount of time, 3 months to adequately read the textbook, take practice tests, let it kind of sit in your brain, and even reading the material over the course of time versus cramming at the end will be so much better for you than feeling like you have to read the textbook overnight and being completely overwhelmed. So I really, really can't stress this enough. Don't start studying like 4 weeks out. Start studying like next week or within the next couple of weeks, and that will really set you up for success. I believe I also have a study plan video on my YouTube channel if you guys haven't seen that already, but I think I outline like a study. Yes, I definitely have a video where I outlined a study plan. So if you want a free one, I've got one on my channel already. The next is tools. number one tool that you're going to need is this book here. This is the David Kent Ballast Reference Manual, 7th edition. This, to my knowledge, is still the most like up-to-date version. He might have more up-to-date versions, but this is the version that people still use to this day. So this is the one that I would recommend you have. Again, this isn't 1,000% comprehensive. You're going to need supplemental materials, but this book itself will give you, I would say, like 80% of the knowledge. I did have some designer feedback saying that they only like read this book and were prepared. I think they were taking like the FX or the PX. So it is possible. But I would recommend getting this textbook and then supplementing it with other materials that fit your learning style. And yeah, so variety of study tools, aligning them with your learning style. Those are my top 2 recommendations. Actually, something I haven't wrote on here that I would recommend as a study tool, quote unquote, is getting a study buddy or joining some kind of study group. If you're a part of IIDA, if you're a part of ASID, any of those design organizations, they all have study groups that you can join. Some of them are paid, like the ASID one, I believe is paid even if you're a member, but the IIDA one that I was in, that was completely free to members. If you're not a member of those, they usually do have limited spots for non-members, so you could pay to get into those. So I would strongly recommend looking into your local chapters. Also, maybe ask around your office for other people that are studying for the exam, any coworkers, any friends, people online. There's a lot of Facebook groups. I'm in this Facebook group as well, where I just, get like feedback and I hear what people are saying in the Facebook group, talking to each other. So those are going to be really, really helpful to just keep you on track. Something else that is not a part of this presentation, but just popped into my mind. If you are taking the exam and you work at a firm or even a larger firm, that's really where you're going to get this benefit. They might be willing to pay for a portion of your exam. Like I said, I took it when I was working at a really big firm in New York. They fully paid for all 3 exams the first time I took it. Obviously, the second time when I took the PRAC again, I had to pay for it out of my pocket, but they had a program where they reimburse for educational and like professional certification. So before you apply, ask your job if they can reimburse you, or even if they give money towards study materials or a study group, that could be a really great way to even just take off some of the financial load. Because again, we're all in different parts of our career, all in different parts of our life. There are people taking this exam that are still students that, again, can't afford to shell out $1,500 to take this exam. So just a side anecdote that I wanted to share with you guys. Test taking strategies. I'm not going to get into test taking strategies. However, I just want to emphasize how important knowing how to take a test is like so important to this. The FX and PX are all multiple choice format, which makes it a little bit easier, quote unquote, hypothetically speaking. But as we saw from the April pass rates, not necessarily. The IDFX was the lowest. And a big part of that is because people don't know how to take a test versus like just learning the material. So what do I mean by take a test? If we know from the insights that there's a lot of tricky wording and it's all application based, you need to be able to read the question and dissect it, kind of, take it at face value and say, what are they actually asking me here? They're looking for the best answer. Now, what do they think is the best answer? What does David Ballast think is the right answer? When I read this topic in the textbook, what was he saying was like the first step in the process or the best answer? So just knowing how to read the questions and also knowing how to eliminate answers. Basic test taking strategies will take you through, if you really don't know, take your first guess instinct, mark it down, and don't change your answer. That is a valid test taking strategy that actually might be the difference between you passing and failing by a couple of questions, or just, minimizing the amount of answers that you're selecting from. Like if you can eliminate 2 answers, there you go. You automatically have a 50% chance of getting the question right. So I would highly suggest you seek out some test taking strategies. Go on YouTube. There's a bunch of them. Get a book, but put this on your list to spend at least a couple of days before your exam learning test taking strategies. This is part of your plan. Like, no questions asked, do this. I promise. And then the last thing that you need is confidence. Kind of piggybacking off of the test taking strategies, this is arguably your biggest asset, is being confident that you studied enough, that you know the topics, that you know how to apply the information, that you haven't just memorized it. You are less likely to get flustered and overwhelmed and make a silly mistake. The pass rates, again, are super slim. One question could be the difference between you passing and failing. And so I would really, really hate for you to fail the exam because you made a silly mistake, because you got flustered, or because you were doubting yourself and going back and forth. Like, I want you to come into this exam feeling confident, feeling like you studied, you know what the answer is. Maybe you don't know what the answer is, but feel confident in your knowledge. Feel confident that you, let's say, know ADA code. You need to figure out what exactly they're asking you in this question to apply the right code and to apply the right knowledge. But just like staying in your power and staying confident will help you from getting overwhelmed and flustered. I was going to say one other thing and it totally just left my mind. So if it comes back, then I'll come back to it. So with all of that said, this is the part that everyone hates of the presentation of the free live stream. So I officially want to launch my brand new and improved NCIDQ cheat sheets. I took all of the information and the feedback that you guys gave me from my first round. Those were very low level and whatever. So I kind of took those, I ran with them. I cross-referenced everything from the CIDQ blueprint. I looked into my survey results, and I've created new and improved cheat sheets for you guys. These are, again, PDFs. You can view them digitally, you can download them and print them, but they're basically taking the information that is in this giant book, selecting most critical topics. So again, talking about the IDFX, you don't want to just sit here and read this whole book. There are critical topics and also topics that we have from the insights that were the most tested, like ADA, like codes, and synthesizing them into an easier to understand and more visual way. So I have a photo of one of them right here, this vertical transportation. That was actually also an insight that I didn't really fit into the presentation, but a lot of people said that vertical transportation was on the exam. So do not forget to study vertical transportation. This includes elevators and ramping. So I've basically taken the information from the David Ballast book and synthesized it into these cheat sheets that are easy to read, easy to understand, and they break down these critical topics. I've also included a 12-week study schedule. Again, that is my advice on how long you should take to study these. The IDPX one, I actually made a 10-week study schedule because that isn't covering every single topic that's in the book. Again, it's more like it's professional practice. So it's covering like more specific areas, but the FX and the practicum and all three are all 12-week study schedules. They show exactly what chapters you need to read each week, which cheat sheets you need to review along with it. So read the chapter and then look at the cheat sheet if you're struggling with something, or just to like see what are those basic concepts. And then after you've read the chapter, you can have the cheat sheet to review and refresh your memory and just keep consistent studying throughout the 3 months. So you don't, let's say, look at vertical transportation 2 months ago, and then you don't look at it again until the test day. And then I've also left my links to my free video content on YouTube. So if you're like reading, let's say, egress, means of egress chapter, I'll have, an egress cheat sheet in there. And then I'll also have a link to my means of egress videos. So you can kind of have a holistic study ecosystem. That's kind of my goal here, is to like create this study ecosystem with like a variety of testing tools. So you have like all of the different, what am I trying to say? Like for your learning style, all the different learning styles to just like make it as easy as possible for you guys. So I have an IDFX specific bundle for people that are just taking the IDFX. Again, here's another example. I tried to make everything super, super visual. Some of the PDFs are not visual. They're mostly text, mostly for the PX, where they're not testing you on visual things. They're testing you on the permitting process. They're testing you on the project management process. But as much as I could, I've added visuals where necessary so that you as a designer and a visual learner can visualize exactly what this content is versus just like reading it in a textbook. And they cover all of these topics. My IDPX as well, I have just for people studying for the IDPX. Practicum, I have actually 20 PDFs covering 14 different topics. The practicum is where you're really going to need the most visual help because, like we mentioned, the practicum format is case studies and not necessarily all multiple choice. They will have multiple choice questions on there, but it's going to be in reference to a larger case study or in reference to the code that they give you. So having visuals for the practicum, I feel like, is the most ideal. One thing I just want to quickly cover is this is the last time that the practicum will be in this format. Starting in 2026, CIDQ has said that they are going to switch to a different format. They're calling it the IDIX, I believe. I haven't done too much specific research into that. I've done a little bit, but I really wanted to focus on the current practicum format because this is still what's going to be on this October exam. So don't worry about what they're doing in 2026. Don't spend your time or waste your time researching that. Focus on this. Focus on what the current format is because it's not changing for October. That's my just biggest piece of advice. And then after the October cycle, we can kind of discuss that. I'm going to do some more personal research and then start putting out some more videos and content to, you know, try to navigate that, whatever that may be. So, excuse me. I've been talking for a long time. My throat's getting dry. So IDFX and IDPX, I have a bundle for you guys here. I also have the total exam bundle. If you are taking all 3 exams, I see a lot of people taking all 3 exams. Even if you're not taking all 3 exams and you just wanted to kind of buy all 3 to have that discount, there are topics that are covered across all 3 exams. So it is kind of helpful to study everything holistically, which is also why I kind of recommended earlier that if you're totally new, to take like the IDFX and the IDPX together because you're studying like this breadth of knowledge that you can then apply to the 2 similarly formatted tests, and then take the practicum second. You've already kind of gone through that. You can focus on the practicum. It's its own test format style, and so you can study more specifically to that format. But so that's why I have the FX and PX bundle for you guys here. And if you are interested at all, again, totally not required. I'm going to continue, churning out free resources for you guys because my mission really is to create like free and affordable content for you guys, for the visual learner, for designers, because that's something that I never had. But if you do want additional resources, then for the next 24 hours, the code PASS10 will work for 10% off everything. So 10% off the individual FX, PX, and PRAC packs, and then 10% off the PX plus FX and 10% off the practicum. I'm going to drop this website in here. I'll pin it up here. So if you guys want to check it out, feel free. If you have any questions about it, feel free to reach out to me. I find me on, YouTube comments. I read and answer all my comments. Instagram DM, my email. I have my email at the end. Reach out, ask me a question. And I'm begging you, if you take the NCIDQ exam this October, please fill out the survey that I send out. The more survey results that I get, the more insights I have, the more information I have, the more I can do of this stuff, and the more information you and the future designers will have. And together we can just like demystify this exam. So with that said, if anybody has any last minute questions, I know we're 50 minutes in, so I'll be on until 7 o'clock sharp. But I will leave this screen up. Oh no, my face is covering. I can see, hold on. Again, feel free to reach out to me on social media and my email, hello@klsy.design. So I will take some Q&A now. So I will be graduating this year in August. Do you recommend me waiting until 2026 to take it, or should I apply for the October 2025? Well, if you are graduating this year, I don't think you're eligible to take anything except for the FX. If you haven't completed your your professional work experience requirement, then you're only eligible to take the FX. And then again, I would go on CIDQ's website and check the eligibility requirements for that. I have a video breaking it down about like what you need if you're a student versus a professional. Hold on, I'm going to share my screen so I can see all of these comments better. Hi, guys. But yeah, so I would say you can only take the FX from what I'm hearing. So I wouldn't worry about waiting. I don't believe the FX and the PX are changing. So if you feel prepared to take the FX and you want to get a head start, I think you should do that. Again, taking it now versus waiting until you get into your professional career, totally your decision. I know people that took it in college and they thought it was easy and passed because it is foundational. You're kind of learning everything that you need to know while you're still in college. But I would look into the requirements to make sure that you can take the FX. Ash is also graduating in May 2026. Congratulations on graduating or graduating soon, guys. Do you have a study/reading schedule? Yes, so I have it in my bundles. I'm thinking I've been doing a lot of stuff. What I wanted to do was kind of create my freebie as the study schedule. I actually have a YouTube video already that outlines a study schedule. I believe I'll have to triple check that, but send me an email at the hello@klsy.design and I'll send you a study schedule just for free. That's something that I'm going to give away in the future anyways. It's like a freebie. So send me an email and I'll send it to you. Can you share the discount code again? Yes, it is PAS10. I will type it in here. I can't pin two things, but it's PAS10. And if you have, again, any issues with the code, send me an email. I'm happy to honor anything. Yeah, just send me, if you have any questions or anything, any issues, send me a question. How far apart should the exams be scheduled? Again, it's your preference. My recommendation, if you're sitting down and studying this whole textbook, like I wouldn't spend too much time apart of each exam. I would do like, if you're taking it in October, take the next one in April. It keeps things fresh in your mind. Just general test taking strategy. You don't want to have to relearn content. Great. Watching from Washington, D.C. Hi, D.C. I passed the FX in April. Congratulations. Do you recommend taking the PX and the PRAC at the same time or spacing them out? I think, I don't know. Like, specifically, I think it's possible. I think it depends on a couple of factors. One, financially. Can you afford to front load all of this, test fees themselves, as much study materials as possible? And do you have the time to focus on that? If you are feeling like, you know what, the next couple of months are really slow and I can take the time to sit down for 3 months and like plan 5 days a week, I study for at least an hour or two, then yes, I would suggest if you want to take them all at once, do that. Again, you're learning all kind of like overlapping information. It would be helpful for you. If you know that you have a busy summer and you don't have the time, or you just don't have the money to shell out all of the exams and all the study resources at once, then space them out. It's not the end of the world. But I would say if you're taking 2 at once, you really need to commit to spending the time and not procrastinating and not cramming at the end. Thank you for these bundles. Is the info covered in these different from in your videos? And they're great. I'm so glad you're enjoying them. There is some that is in the videos, and then there is some that is not. And the ones that have videos attached to them, I've added like more information. I'm going to post this video, this live stream as a YouTube video, so you guys can like rewatch this as well and check out all the information. But on the actual product sheet, like if you go to the website and you click on the product, I've listed out every topic that the cheat sheets are covering. So that'll kind of tell you exactly what topics are being covered. But yes, there is a lot of new stuff that's not in videos yet. And then there's some stuff that I have talked about in videos. And some of them are super similar and some of them have like added information, or they have like an added layer to them. Sorry, I meant in the month of October, 1 week apart, 2 weeks. Oh, you mean like how far apart in October? Okay. I would say also personal preference. I'm a super procrastinator. So when I took my practicum October of 2021, my second practicum, I literally scheduled it for Halloween Day because it was the last day of the month, because I was like so dreading taking it again because I had failed the first time. So it's up to you. If you feel like you've given yourself a lot of time to study throughout the months, take it, get it over with, back to back in the beginning of the month. If you feel like you have procrastinated and you need that extra month to study, there's no shame in scheduling both of your exams farther out, or scheduling one in the beginning and then scheduling one at the end to give yourself more time. Again, that's kind of the good thing about the exam being offered all month long, is you can decide if you want that extra study time. You can literally get a full 4 weeks of extra study time, or you can just kind of take it and get it over with. That's another tip that I didn't mention. Not tip, but please, 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 as soon as the proctor dates come out, schedule your exam as soon as possible, because spots fill up really, really quickly in those proctor centers. If you're taking it in the beginning, if you want to take it at the end, spots fill up fast. So you'll be able to choose exactly when you can take the exam. Can we rewatch this video on your channel? Yes, I'm going to post it as a standing YouTube video, so you guys can rewatch this if you'd like. I was thinking end of October. Yeah, Halloween Day party with NCIDQ, and then go out and go have fun. That's what I did. Scheduling opens tomorrow. It's getting real. Again, just make a promise to yourself that you're going to set aside set times throughout the next 3 months to study. Start now. Don't procrastinate. It will just make you less confident if you keep procrastinating, and then you realize that you have this entire book to get through. And in my study plans, I have outlined just like 3 chapters per week, so that it's like really easy and slow and you're not getting overwhelmed. So that would be my recommendation. I'm finding it challenging to balance my responsibilities as a full-time employee with the need to study. That is a real struggle. I was very, very, I guess, lucky that I had COVID, that I used as a way to literally not have anything else going on in my life. Even though COVID was not a fun, pretty thing, I used it to my advantage. We don't have that anymore. You do have to go into work full time. Maybe people have families and children. So if that's the case, then I would not stress yourself out. I would then go the route of taking one exam at a time and just like diving deep into the specific topics that are going to be covered. I am also going to put the link to the CIDQ blueprint in here as well for anybody that doesn't know what that is. Oh. Okay, let me see if this link works. Hold on 1 second. I'm trying to make this work for you guys. Okay. So here's the CIDQ blueprint. This is the specific information that they give you about all of the exams. It'll tell you exactly per test, like what are the overarching topics, and then there's a percentage. So it'll say like 20% of the test will be about construction administration. So if that's the largest amount, then you know, like, okay, I should focus on construction administration when I'm studying. So take a peek at that. It's very helpful. But yeah, I would just say if you're finding it challenging to balance your responsibilities, then definitely take it slow, take it one test at a time. I would also communicate with your boss, your employer, whoever that is, that you are taking the NCIDQ exam, and you'd be surprised that they would be more flexible to you if you're like, hey, I want to, take a half day so I can study, or I want to leave an hour early so I can study, like whatever. Let them know, even if it's not leaving early, but like let them know that you're studying, because they might be more amenable and flexible with your schedule, especially with you taking off on study days. Like I know when I took it, my employer let us in our contract take 3 days off, or however many days off, to actually physically go take the exam. So it's kind of like a free paid day off. So just communicate with your employer and see like what kind of benefits they have, or how they can kind of help you with that. Hi, Lillian. Would you say to take the 3 in each order? Okay. I would actually, yes, recommend taking them in order, because so how the formats of the exam go are, you have the IDFX, which is fundamentals. So design principles, basics, the process of an interior design thing, like of an interior design project. That's your foundational basics. And they're going to ask you, like I mentioned in the insights, like more like broad questions about it. Like, maybe not as specific as what are the design principles, but like, what was the example I gave earlier? What is the right programming graph or programming diagram to use if you are at this phase in the project? So they're more like foundational questions. IDPX builds on that a little bit. So IDPX, as we know, is heavier on codes. And with taking the fundamentals that you already know, because CIDQ is kind of expecting you to already know those fundamentals, like you should have quote unquote taken the FX first, building on it. And PX is very like application based. So again, like memorizing the fire codes, maybe a little less as important as like, what do the fire codes do and like how do you use them in the situations. Of course, that does involve memorization. You need to know what NFPA 701 is, but it's more important that you associate NFPA with like what it actually like is meant to do, or why would you use that, or why do you need to know that. So PX is building on like the why in the application. And then the practicum exam, because it's got those case studies and it's more visual, that is literally taking all the information that you've learned up to this point and applying it. So they'll give you an elevation drawing and say, drag and drop all of the correct tags on this partition section detail. Drag and drop all of the correct ADA dimensions on this plan. So the PRAC is like, you are taking all that information that you are referencing the IBC code that they give you, which is also like, you don't need to memorize every single code. They're going to give you an IBC on the practicum. It's not the full IBC. It's a shortened version, but they do give you the IBC to reference, the International Building Code, if no one knows what IBC is. And you are physically like applying it to a case study or to a drawing or something. There are multiple choice questions, but it's going to be in reference to that case study. So yes, I would, that was kind of a long answer for, I would recommend that you take them in order if you can. If we need to get the cheat sheets, would you say we need the David Ballast book as well? Yes. So the cheat sheet study plan is directly aligned with the David Ballast readings. So you'll basically like read 3 chapters this week and reference these cheat sheets and watch these 3 videos on my YouTube channel if you haven't seen them already. In general, even if you don't get the cheat sheets, I would recommend you buy that book or go on a Facebook group. There's a lot of Facebook groups to purchase secondhand books. I actually got this book because I rented mine when I took the exam. I got this book from a friend who took the exam already and she doesn't need it anymore. So that's how I got this one. I would recommend, if you want to save a little bit of money, feel free to get a secondhand copy from a friend. But yes, regardless, I would recommend getting that book. I started studying in April and was being super consistent, but I've tapered off since mid-May. Okay, I think you started studying a little bit early. This is amazing that you started studying in April. I would say if you haven't done anything and you started studying in July, say like early to mid-July, that is, I would say, like when most people start studying. My study plan in the cheat sheets, and also if you send me an email and you just want me to send you the study plan without the cheat sheets, I can do that for anyone. Just send me an email. That's a 12-week plan. So that kind of outlines starting July 7th, like July, August, and September, 3 months of studying. And then if you take the exam beginning of October, you're ready for it. If you want that extra 3 or 4 weeks, take it at the end of October. It gives you more time. Hope that answered that question. So thankful for your content. It's super, super helpful. Thank you so much. I want to thank everyone so much for coming. I'll be honest, I was a little nervous that no one showed to my live stream. I'm like, oh my God, are people going to show up to my live stream? They don't know who I am. So I really appreciate it. Is there a deadline for the promo code? There is a deadline for the promo code. It's for 24 hours only. Yes, 24 hours only for the extra 10% off. And that seems like all the questions. It's been an hour and 7 minutes. I will let you all go and enjoy your Monday. But again, I just want to emphasize, thank you guys so much for coming. I hope this was helpful. I would love any kind of feedback that you have about either the content, the resources, the videos, me presenting the way that anything. The more feedback I get, the better I can make all these things, all these resources for you guys. So that's amazing. Tell your friends if they want to watch my content. If you haven't signed up for my email list, sign up for my email list. I send emails like once a month, and I send you some NCIDQ. Maybe I'll send another discount code in the future of for my email list. So sign up for my email list. I'll answer this last question. Rosa Josephine, I'm feeling overwhelmed with logging and making sure I have all work experience in each category. You didn't hear me say this. They're not going to check. Like, it's good to you need the experience because you need to know what you're doing. It's so no Joe Schmo off the street can take these exams. But they're not going to ask you for proof. So I would say do your best to log as much as you can. Have your mentor or your boss or whoever's going to sign off on it. But I wouldn't get overwhelmed or stressed about that process at all. It's not anything that you should worry about. So with that said, thank you guys so much. Enjoy your Monday, and I'll see you next time.